returned from the hospital after my surgery to find my ramp gone and a fresh patch of concrete where it used to be. My neighbor stood there, arms folded. It was lowering my property value, he said. I couldn't even get inside my own home. 3 weeks later, when he stepped onto his porch, he saw something that made him freeze. I pulled into the driveway around dusk. My car rolled to a stop and the silence fell off. 3 weeks ago, I'd come home from the hospital after my surgery. I was still weak, still unsteady. My ramp, my lifeline, was gone, replaced by a fresh slab of concrete that blocked my front door like a wall. My neighbor, Mark, stood there, arms folded like he owned the place. It was lowering my property value, he said, eyes hard. I couldn't have it here. I stared at him, helpless. My surgery. How am I supposed to get in? He just shrugged. That's not my problem. I felt tears burn, but I blinked them back. I needed the ramp to enter my house. Every step inside the front door was like climbing Everest without oxygen. I had never felt more alone. That night, I slept in the car. I didn't want to wake him. I didn't want to argue again. I curled into the driver's seat, staring at that solid concrete block where my ramp had been, feeling the world close in. The next 3 weeks were torture. I called City Hall legal aid. They said it would take time, weeks, maybe months. Meanwhile, every morning I sat outside waiting for someone to help me in. Delivery guys would leave boxes on the porch. I'd sit in my car and cry, wondering how someone could feel so entitled. Then today, something changed. It was early. Mark stepped onto his porch to grab his newspaper. It was his habit. Every morning at 6:30, he'd stand there, Midas mug of coffee in hand, surveying the street like a king in a kingdom of lawns. His mug hit the porch floor in one sharp clink. He froze. There, in the center of his porch, silent and steady, stood my ramp. My ramp only. It wasn't broken. It was polished, straight, clean. Someone had installed it just for him. And standing behind him on his drive in blue and white uniform were 2 city contractors. One held a clipboard. The other tapped his pen on the paperwork. Mark stepped back, eyes wide. He looked at the ramp. He looked at the contractors. Then he looked at me. Standing halfway down the driveway, fresh coffee in my hand, cool breeze catching my breath. I didn't say a word. I just nodded. That was the moment he realized I had done more than wait. I had pushed. I had filed. I had stood outside every morning until someone finally listened. He swallowed. And then, without looking me in the eye, he went inside and closed the door. Mark stopped coming outside after that. For the first few days, I thought maybe he was just embarrassed. Having a disability ramp installed on his porch, the same type he had ripped off my home. It was poetic. Yeah, but I didn't expect him to take it well. What I didn't expect was what came next. About a week later, I noticed his car was gone. Not just for a day, for several. I didn't think much of it at first until the city guys showed up again, this time to inspect his property. That got my attention. One of them knocked on my door looking sheepish. He told me the permit Mark filed to remove my ramp wasn't just unauthorized, it was fraudulent. He had forged a fake complaint letter claiming the ramp had been abandoned and posed a public safety issue. Attached a fake signature that was supposed to be mine. The moment they figured it out, it triggered a full audit. Turns out Mark had pulled the same kind of stunts before with fences, with tree removals, even had a bogus water drainage complaint filed against the neighbor on the other side 2 years back. This was bigger than I thought. I started getting calls from people who lived on our street, people who had always kept to themselves. Turns out Mark had quietly made enemies out of half the block. And once word got around that he was under city investigation, those people came out of the woodwork. Margie across the street told me he tried to report her son's car for illegal parking 4 times last winter. Frank next door said Mark once tried to convince the HOA that Frank's porch chairs were a blight. These weren't one-off incidents. This was a pattern. And somehow I had become the breaking point. The next thing I knew, a petition had started. Not by me, by people I barely knew. Enough is enough, the headline said. They wanted Mark removed from the HOA board. They wanted legal action. They wanted compensation for me, for others. That's when Mark came back. He didn't knock. Just stood at the edge of my driveway one evening, arms at his sides, watching me as I sat on my porch. His voice was flat. I didn't know it would go this far. I didn't say anything. I just looked at him. He took a step forward. You got your ramp back. You could have let it go. I stood. My knees still hurt from the surgery. And you could have knocked on my door before ripping it out. His mouth opened, but no words came out. He just stood there watching me like he was trying to figure out how everything had spun so far out of his control. Then he turned and walked away. A few days later, his house was vandalized. Just a few words spray painted across the garage door in black paint. This is what you built. I didn't do it. I don't even know who did. But I stood there for a long time that morning just looking at the words. He had made this mess with his own hands. Now the whole street could see it. The spray paint was gone by the end of the day. Fresh coat of off-white paint, same shade as before, like nothing had ever happened, but everyone on the block had seen it. Took pictures probably. I know I did. That weekend, someone rang my doorbell. I expected a neighbor, maybe someone asking for another signature for the petition. But when I opened the door, I saw a woman I didn't recognize. Mid-40s, stiff posture, eyes tired like she hadn't slept in days. "Are you the one he did it to?" she asked. I didn't answer. She looked past me at the ramp. "I'm his sister," she said. "Mark X." I nodded slowly. She looked down at her hands. "He didn't tell me any of this. Not until the city called and said he might be facing charges." My chest tightened. "Why are you here?" She looked up. "Because he's not the only one who has to deal with the fallout. His name's on the property, but mine is too. Our parents left it to both of us. I live in Arizona, but now I've got attorneys calling me, people talking about lawsuits. I need to understand what happened." I let her sit on the porch with me, told her everything, not just about the ramp, but how I'd been stuck in my car for a night after surgery. How I'd cried on the phone trying to get legal help. How he'd stood there proud of what he'd done like it was his right. She didn't defend him. She just listened, said nothing for a while. Now you can watch the second part by pressing share and more.